There. Is it?
Okay, now can folks hear me? We need confirmation. So thank you for your patience, everybody. I will be trimming all of this off of the final YouTube video. Um, for those of you who are here, hello H Tank. I know who you actually are. Hello Astronomy. Hello Alan. Hello all the people who have not said hello, whose names I do not know. Um, I am not at my normal place. I am somehow even worse lit than normal. And this is because Ali Pelfrey, my right hand human, my producer here at CosmoQuest, she is sitting at my normal desk. We had the most fabulous experience yesterday. We have matched Mac Minis that we got as part of last year's Hangoutathon to improve our production quality. And, since she's gonna be producing the Hangoutathon, I was like, "You can just log me out of everything." And she's like, "Or I can put my computer in." And she literally just pulled my Mac Mini out of the chaos, plugged all of my peripherals into her Mac Mini, and it just worked, except for some of the lights. We're still working on some of the lights because 'cause they're Wi-Fi enabled and a bit confused. Um, so I am sitting in a chair that is much more comfortable and much less well lit. Um, all right, so that's the chaos in the background. Hello, Mythtown. Hello, Honda Insight. You are a car commercial, my friend. You are a car commercial. All right, joining me this week for our late arriving stream. This is CosmoQuest After Hours. Um, Welcome to CosmoQuest After Hours. I am joined this week by a old and dear friend, Mike, who I've misnamed so many times over the years. Mike Simmons, who is not Mike Simons, who is not Mike Simonson, um, is with me. He is the director, CEO, I'm not sure of the correct term, of Astronomy for Equity, a project working to build a better world, one connection to the sky at a time. Thank you for being here. How are you doing today, Mike?
Well, I'm doing okay. I'm painfully watching you struggling to get online here and get us live, but things happen.
Yeah,
I'm doing well, and you got my name right.
I did. I did. I have to every single time do the not Mike Simonson, which is a really strange thing after 20 plus years. But he and I were buds going back to 2003, and I sent you both each other's emails for all the years I knew both of you. And sadly, he passed away. But yeah, volume mismatch. Mike is much louder than Pamela. Okay, these are things I have hopefully the capacity to fix. The easiest way to fix is to just move the mic closer to my face. Let's see what else I can do to improve the situation. All right, have to move part of the screen in front of Mike for a moment. I'm on one small monitor right now. All right, all right. Um, this should work better. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. So, you went on an adventure earlier this year that I'm sure many people, including potentially your wife, thought you were insane to do. You traveled to Ukraine with telescopes. And this is the
Yeah.
kind of thing you've done the whole time I've known you. You have literally brought astronomy to places that didn't necessarily have any form of hope, didn't necessarily have food, and you brought them space. So, first of all, tell us a little bit about that trip to Ukraine, and then I want to talk to you about how it's worthwhile to bring astronomy to places that have so little.
Yeah. Well, first I want to clarify, my wife didn't say I was insane going to Ukraine because she said it to me so many times she does not bother. It's implied, and I don't argue with her. I think she's probably right, but you know, what can you do? So she tolerates me. She even made me some fresh ground coffee just
Cheers.
now and brought it to me. So yeah, cheers, absolutely. So. Mm. Which is important to me. I took it to Ukraine with me, and I take it everywhere and grind it up myself. So anyway, yes, I did go to Ukraine. Um, now I had sent them telescopes earlier. This is a request that came through a colleague
Mhm.
at an institution that I belong to, and she's providing educational resources, in particular laptops. She's provided a lot of laptops there for the schools. And the astronomy student said to her, you know, the power keeps going out and our sky gets dark. We need telescopes, which I thought was the best silver lining I've ever seen
Yeah.
when you're under attack. Hey, everybody, let's go outside and look at the sky. And I did a fundraiser crowdfunding thing for them to get some telescopes. I always ask what kind of, what the factors are in deciding what telescopes to get them. This is the first time I've ever had to consider that they needed to be able to be picked up and carried into a bomb shelter quickly. But I have had to worry about elephants walking through and things like that and other places. Um, yeah, and East Africa. And so I have sent a lot of telescopes around the world, places like this. I'm not the Johnny Appleseed or Johnny Applescope going around with telescopes, handing them out to people as I go. Though some of the places I go, it does get a little bit of attention. But this time, I decided, and talking to the people there that run the NGO that we were connecting through, that I'd kind of like to go there. And neither one of us wanted to say, and they kind of wanted me to come there and meet the students and so on because it's an opportunity. So I put together a small team. This is not an occasion where I went around asking me people, hey, you want to go to a war zone with me? But people volunteer. And I did ask one person, Mirjana Povic, she's now in
Yeah.
Ethiopia. She grew up in Serbia
Okay.
during the Balkan Wars, and I thought she would be a good person to meet the students, and she jumped on it. She was ready. One of the people that came along, Dean Love Productions, is a documentary filmmaker, has won a few Emmys and this and that, and he heard about it from a cosmologist who is also kind of crazy. She's a cosmologist, a ballet dancer, and
Oh,
Himalayan mountaineer.
okay.
Um, and she ended up not going, but because she's has a family now and
Yeah.
kind of has this sense of responsibility,
Yeah.
which some people have. I'm not sure I do, but she does. And anyway, so Dean came along, and he's been back since to get some additional B footage and some B-roll.
Yeah.
And there will be a documentary coming out about this trip, I guess sometime next year, hopefully soon.
That's amazing.
Now, as far as why,
Yeah.
I've sent telescopes not only to Ukraine, but most recently to for middle school astronomy clubs across Libya, um, northern Iraq, where I did go actually and took them with me. This was a long time ago. Um, and during the war, I'd been to Baghdad just before without telescopes. And East Africa, West Africa, Asia, different places. And why do we do this? Well, I got, and I don't know who the person was, and I wouldn't identify him if I did, but I got a
Yeah.
comment once we were raising. money for telescopes for a program called Telescopes to Tanzania.
Yeah.
And the comment was, and this is kind of typical, I think they need food more than they need telescopes. Well, what they need to go back to another adage is they need to learn how to fish rather than handing them fish.
Yeah.
Astronomy is used to build the infrastructure in Ethiopia, or have been. I haven't taken telescopes. They have plenty. They built observatories and so on. Astronomy and space science. Um, it's being used in Pakistan, where I was last month,
Yeah.
and many other places. But it also, for as an example, of countries in crisis like Ukraine, in their case, they have the food, their infrastructure is getting pummeled, but they're managing okay.
Yeah.
They're not a really they're well along the way as far as being advanced. They're technologically very advanced, but the students there have gone from seeing their future in Ukraine or elsewhere to not knowing what's going to happen. And talking to the students there, they're imagine being on a career path. Say you're in high school, you're going to college, you plan to do something, you're a good student, and all of a sudden this happens and you have no idea what your future is going to be.
Yeah.
And the person who started the NGO said, uh, how did she put this? When when you have dreams, you hope. They've stopped dreaming. Might have been the other way around, but the point is that they're just they're just kind of lost.
Yeah.
And looking to space, as you know, centers us. It inspires us. It gives us something more than you can't looking through a telescope, dreaming about the future. It's a part of nature. It just for mental health as well as just getting a break and having a chance to dream about things is really critical,
Yeah.
and it makes a difference.
You and I are both very active with a variety of the different International Astronomical Union programs, Astronomy for Development, Astronomy for Outreach. And there was a session at an IAU meeting. I'm trying to remember what continent we were in. I believe this was the Beijing meeting. And one during one of the sessions, a gentleman from South Africa stood up and he said, "We often get asked, why is South Africa working to have astronomy? Uh, there are people starving in South Africa. And for the amount of money we spend on astronomy, we could provide everyone one meal for one day. But with what we do for astronomy, we are bringing electricity, we are bringing running water, we are bringing high speed internet into new parts of the country. We are creating jobs and we were showing people what is possible. And this idea that because astronomy requires darkness, because astronomy requires high speed internet, because I mean, Rubin observatories can be bringing in 320 terabytes per night of data. Um, with that kind of data flow, we need specialized everything, and infrastructure has to be built from the cities to a low altitude facility to support the observatory, up the mountain to the observatory. And there needs to be all the jobs to support all of this. And once the infrastructure is there, you can start building schools with resources. You can start, well, I mean, when your dad goes from a subsistence farmer to working at an observatory, meeting PhDs who work with spacecraft, it changes your perspective, it changes your pride and your sense of self and what is possible for your children. And I love this idea that us sometimes crunchy scientists who are up all night yelling at clouds, we have all at one point or another yelled at a cloud. Um,
Yeah.
we're actually inspiring people to change what they want to do with their life and to dream bigger for themselves. And that's what we do is we make people dream bigger for themselves. Now,
Yeah.
you in going to the Ukraine, that message of hope is one that's so important. The message in Iraq, in Pakistan, where you just were, of these are possibilities for anyone is so important. And we live in a weird time right now where equity is kind of a dirty word. That face is accurate.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you tell people who are like, well, anyone should be able to figure this out? Anyone should be able to accomplish anything if they just try hard enough. People aren't trying hard enough.
Yeah. Well, that one's tough because understanding comes from firsthand experience.
Yeah,
Intellectually, if you don't get it, then there's nothing you can do about it. And for example, when I started another organization, before it was based on connecting people uh, in different countries based on astronomy. It
yeah,
was based on my trips to Iran and Iraq
yeah,
and some other places where our governments don't get along, and people in the United States thought, well, we should just bomb these people, you
yeah,
know. And then I connected them to people who are real people doing exactly the same thing in astronomy, looking at the same sky,
yeah,
and uh, everything changed.
yeah,
That's a firsthand experience. Well, these are real people, and it went from bomb them to how can we help them get telescopes or this or that. Um, Travel does that. People who say, well, I grew up in a poor circumstances and I accomplished this. Good for them,
yeah,
but not everybody can do that. And it's more than, I mean, you nailed it with the fact that it's inspiration. It's not just, okay, I want to do that so I can do it. The vast majority of the world has no pathway to getting to their dreams.
yeah,
We're all born scientists. We grow up going around opening up cupboard doors and throwing pots around just to see what happens. And at a certain point, most of the people in the world, the young people, get to a point where they just say, okay, well, I wanted to be an astronaut, but that's not going to happen. I haven't gotten to that point yet because, new space and all that. But being an astronomer, being something else, it just isn't an option. There's no role model. There's no pathway, and it just doesn't happen. And it's hard for people to understand that. There's something different about some people who accomplish things,
yeah,
but it doesn't mean other people aren't capable.
yeah,
I meet the most ambitious, the ones I call diamonds in the rough, in different countries because they just need a chance to be polished. And they are ambitious, but they don't have the opportunity. But what do you do if you're in a village off the grid? You can be born with an IQ at 200, and there's nothing there. There's no opportunity. You can't just figure it out. So it's difficult, and you can't convince everybody. But I will say that there's more to it than just building the infrastructure, like you pointed out too. That's something an argument that's used quite often for space, going into space. We
yeah,
spend billions of dollars, and look, we invented Velcro, because we needed it in space, and that's fine, but it's not enough to me. There are these spin-offs,
hmm
What I do is focus on what I call the unserved. The ones I'm
Okay.
talking about who are off the grid, they're forget about it. I just had a meeting with somebody who works with a program in the inner city in LA with underserved kids who don't see these opportunities that people say just work harder. You have to have some
Yeah.
place to work. You have to have an idea that you can do it. You have to have role
Yeah.
models. And that's fantastic, but most of the world doesn't have access to these underserved programs. They'll
Yeah.
never hear about them. So I call them the unserved to differentiate.
Yeah.
And I work with organizations around the world. I don't go there myself. Unless somebody buys me a ticket, I'll go anywhere. Give me a ticket, I'll be there. And um, who are already doing astronomy. And the
Hmm.
reason for doing astronomy for education is to introduce science. Because in places Tanzania, in rural Tanzania, and other places in Pakistan and other places that I work with people. Uh, they don't have science facilities. They
Yeah.
don't have science teachers.
Yeah.
But if you're off the grid in rural Ethiopia, you have a better astronomy lab than you and I do
It's true.
because it is dark.
Yes.
And everybody has that. Everybody has the sun. We have a big program right now. It's based entirely on looking at the sun. I got over 1 million solar eclipse glasses donated.
I
We're
want to point
building it.
something out. We call them
Yes.
solar eclipse glasses, but they work year round. And right
Yeah.
now, there is an amazing pair of sunspot complexes that together take up I want to say a good 20% of the disk of the sun in length. If you have eclipse glasses that like you check and they have no scratches, they have no pinholes or anything, and you have clear skies, go look at the sun right now. These are amazing sunspots. Sorry, I needed to interrupt and say we call them eclipse glasses. They're solar protect your eyes glasses. And yeah,
100%. Yeah, 100%. And I try to avoid putting the word eclipse in there. In all the things I write, I call them solar glasses.
yeah,
You can look at the sun anytime.
yeah,
I've got lots of pictures. We can show the pictures if you want, we'll just queue them up of kids in Uganda and Rwanda and places like that with solar glasses that I've sent over there for an eclipse, but they're being used for other things as well.
yeah,
And the look of awe on their faces. How many people have ever seen the sun?
yeah.
It's there all the time. Nobody stares at it. You
You
can't
shouldn't.
really see it. And no, and you've reminded me that I need to see if I have any of those things here so I can go out and see this for myself
Yeah,
because naked eye sunspots are a rarity. Um, so that, for example, is just this program is just using the sun in a curriculum we're building to ask questions. The point is not to make astronomers, because as you know very well, Pamela, becoming an astronomer is just a study in masochism these days.
it is.
And your chances of getting a job in astronomy are very low. We don't need more astronomers, but by asking questions, science. This is science. What is the sun?
Yeah,
That's science. You look at it and you say, what is that? Just like we've done since we were born.
yeah,
Well, it's gas and it's this and it's that. Well, what is gas? Well, you're surrounded by it. What is this stuff that's around you? So the whole point of using astronomy to introduce STEM education is not to make astronomers. It's to inspire people to go to consider science, technology, engineering, math, whatever it is that's of interest, just to get them thinking. And I have had the experience of
yeah,
having people come to a telescope that I was running at a big major public observatory many decades ago and saying, looking through this telescope is what got me into science.
yes,
And it wasn't astronomy, but this is not unusual. I know lots of people who've gotten into things because of that first look. It's science.
yeah,
Just it's inspiring. So the purpose is just to give people an opportunity to look up, wonder, ask questions, answer the questions and be inspired by the exploration of the universe and
Yeah.
asking questions and not just, looking at a picture from the J West or Hubble or something like that, because that's somewhere else. But having a firsthand experience and saying, "Wow, this is something I can get into."
And this is one of those things where I think we have to look at the question, what is the difference between an amateur and a professional astronomer? And we're both old enough to remember when the Olympics required athletes to be amateur athletes, which just meant they weren't being paid to be an athlete. So an NBA basketball player wasn't allowed to compete back then in the Olympics, but a college student was. And in the equestrian sports, this was particularly important because as soon as you start being a paid trainer, you lose your amateur status. And so I qualify as an amateur equestrian, and I've been thrown on horses I had no right being on because they needed someone with amateur status in a competition. And that idea that Olympians were amateurs is something we need to hold on to because there are people out there who are amateur astronomers who, because they're computer scientists, they're finance people, they're medical doctors, they have the personal resources to buy things I can't get as a professional, like narrowband filters, and they're using half meter telescopes. And there's people out there like Bray Falls who is discovering planetary nebula. There are people out there like Anthony Wesley who is discovering new features on Jupiter. There's all these things that we see coming up over and over because people have a passion, they spend money on their passion, and they become Olympians with amateur status. Well, those of us who are literally begging for money on the internet to eke out a living, as professional researchers, hi, please donate to CosmoQuest. Um, we
Yes, do.
we just have a different set of resources. That's the difference. And I've spent my spare money in the past on equestrian sports, and I have a smaller budget today, so now I knit. It's much cheaper as a hobby. Um, yeah, we have to each figure out, and thank you to all of you who've been subbing in the Twitch chat. I really appreciate all of you. We have to find a way to make it clear to the world that that's the difference between amateur and professional. And anyone can contribute. And what matters is they didn't lose that childlike willingness to ask questions and say, "Hey, I see this something. Come look at this something." And that's the part people don't remember is the thing that makes you a scientist is you force other people to look at the thing you just discovered. If you keep it silent and hold it close to your heart, that's not science. That's, oh, I did a thing no one knows. You have to be loud with what you discover.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. People will say so and so did this before Galileo or
Yeah,
Halley or different things, but they didn't publish.
right.
It didn't have an impact. It's the people who go out and shout from the highest point in the town about what they found that have an impact. So looking back, even before my time,
Yeah.
amateur astronomers contributed to science as professionals. They got
Yes.
hired. They weren't academics. I've been involved in Mount Wilson Observatory for many years, and not much the last 10 years or so. But I started the first support organization and so on a while back.
Yeah.
And Milton Humison
That's the
started there as
story.
a janitor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
and
actually started as a mule cart driver. He was one of the
well,
people who yeah, go ahead.
yeah, he was doing that, bringing things to the observatory, and he started seeing the electrician's daughter, who said, "I'm not letting Mill Skinner see my daughter." So he got him a job as a janitor at the observatory because that was a higher social status. and he could keep an eye on him. And from there, he learned how to do astronomy and worked his way up and worked with Hubble on all the things that happened. And that place, in your case, before it were places where people who weren't professional astronomers, E. E. Barnard, for example,
Yeah.
and others, became major professional observers, and they were recognized for that, and they were hired. There weren't a lot of astronomy programs then, so there weren't a lot of PhDs running around. Now, during my time uh, in organizing amateur astronomy things, I've always been the guy organizing stuff. I don't know why. Uh, it's what I do. And locally, in Los Angeles Astronomical Society, they ran for a while and so on. And amateur astronomers were never professional astronomers. The professional astronomers were the the Olympians in the old sense. They were in the ivory tower, Mount Olympus. They were the gods, and they didn't talk to amateur astronomers. Um, you probably remember these days.
Yeah.
And it was two different things, but you never knew who you were going to meet at a star party
Yeah.
because everybody gets into astronomy. And like you say, some people can afford the gear, others have more modest gear, but it's passion driven, period. I've even been at one time at a dark sky star party and recognized the voice of a television
Yeah.
personality in the dark. I never saw him, but I heard him. Um, and somebody nobody would recognize now, Dave Garroway. He was a big back then, but Johnny Carson was also amateur astronomer. So, but that's changed, and I started meeting more and more professionals who want to do outreach, and now it's a very big thing. Professional astronomers are really interested in the outreach and the education and so on. And as you say, amateur astronomers have risen to a level where they are doing professional work. And it's absolutely needed. You run programs to get people involved because there's way too much work to be done by the professional astronomers. It's just
Yeah.
not possible. So things have changed quite a bit, but it is really the most universal and accessible of all the sciences. And I know people doing astronomy, and in particular doing outreach in most of the countries in the world, and I'm sure there are some everywhere. I mean, I once was contacted by somebody in Uganda said, "I'm the only amateur astronomer in my country." And yeah, so I introduced him to some others that I knew,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is just, you
And
know,
that's one of the things that really amazed me. You and I are both uh survivors of the International Year of Astronomy organizing committees. And one of the big projects that you worked on is The World at Night, which brought together amateur astronomers, many of them using DSLR cameras to take pictures of landscapes with the moon, the stars, the disk of the Milky Way behind them. And here in the United States, we're very much used to you go to your local astronomy club, and it is mostly white guys old enough to be my dad. And that has been true my entire life. Like the amateur community in the United States has aged with, yeah, they're all your age.
yeah.
Um, and but then you go to other nations and it's so different. Can you talk to that at all?
Yeah, yeah. Well, as in almost everything that I can think of, the United States is the exception
Yeah.
rather than the rule. And so I will say that amateur astronomy in the US is changing. There are a lot more women involved now,
Yes.
and more people of different ethnicities as well. Um, and so it is not just the all the guys sitting around talking to each other anymore like that and yelling at clouds like Abe Simpson, another old guy. And so so that's improved a lot. But one of the things is, I don't know, here, younger people, they do want to have firsthand experiences. I think they just mostly don't know about it, but it is changing.
Hmm.
Now, in other countries, the first time I went to Iran was in 1999. I was chasing an eclipse,
Yeah,
decided to go there instead of um, Europe. It's just like, you know, my wife is right when she says I'm insane. She went with me actually, and I've been back many times since.
yeah,
And I found a really vibrant, active astronomy community, and it's all young people, and it's almost all girls.
that's
Um,
so amazing.
and and why it's mostly female, I'm not sure. But that is a little different. But in all these different places, when I was in Pakistan, I was invited to give a keynote and a workshop, which they call a master class to make it sound better. It's a workshop, just stand around
Yeah,
and talk to people. And I did it on outreach and education with space science and astronomy.
yeah,
And there were brilliant students there, and they were all really anxious. I was being contacted by them and saying, we can't wait to meet you. And it was a big deal. They were soaking up the information on how to do outreach. They're really passionate, all young people. The professors weren't doing this.
yeah,
They also took me to their observatory. Uh, the people invited me and held a conference at the Institute of Space Technology in Islamabad.
yeah,
Um, and they have a fantastic observatory where they do star parties and everything else. And this is the rule everywhere. It's something for younger people. I'm not sure why it hasn't caught on as much here.
yeah,
Um, but uh, Europe, it's kind of a mix. So developing countries, I think it's just one science that people can get involved in. I mean, the reason I started doing things with other countries is because I'd done it here, organizing things, and I realized when I went to Iran and Iraq and other places, they needed help
yeah,
more than here. I can stand in a public observatory and talk to people from Los Angeles at Griffith Observatory, where it was 50 years ago. And, you know, they're fascinated and it's great and I love it. But there was nobody doing this in other places. And, you know, there to show them stuff. So that's why you can tell I always go for the underdogs.
Now, you bring up one of the interesting problems that we deal with, which is here in the United States, it is very much a white guy's field. And that's not the rest of the world, but there's different biases in different places. Um, and this is where, I mean, it is very much biased towards people who are visual thinkers who are not vision impaired, and yet a lot of our audience members know Morgan Renberg, who's a blind astronomer who worked on the Cassini mission. There are always examples of people who find ways to do what they love despite, and that's the issue, is it's despite the biases that work against them. One of the things that you have worked a great deal on is finding ways to overcome these kinds of barriers. Can you talk about some of the things that are happening to make it something that it's not a matter of having to build the ramp, but rather flattening the field for everybody?
Mm. Yeah. Well, you really need to kind of raise the tide. Rising tide lifts
Yeah.
all boats. And to me, I look at the lowest level and say we can raise these people up. I mean,
Hmm.
it's great to like the brilliant students I met at the Institute of Space Technology in Islamabad.
Yeah.
They're the best of the best, and giving them every opportunity is good for everybody. but others are doing that. So there are people, I work with organizations in countries around the world who are using astronomy to get out and educate and inspire those unserved. And I wish I could go to all these places, but I can't. I go when I can, but they're the field workers. They're the force multipliers. They're the
Yeah.
ones who are already there, and they just need a little bit of help. And we can do that with a central organization. That's why it's now Astronomy for Equity. Um, the idea of equity, the idea of flattening the field, um, is not to help individuals. In countries where women can't go into a certain field, they just eliminated half of their best people
Yeah.
because there's not a or if it's because of one particular tribe or race or something else. So it's better for everybody to raise the tide. Um, you mentioned uh, blind astronomy too, and you say this is a visual thing, but I'm also working in that because I know people around the world who are doing outreach in astronomy and
Yeah.
including blind people. And I've got a project that we're just starting up again after several false starts that's bringing together people I know who some at NASA, some in
Yeah.
astronomy clubs in Syria or India who have figured out how to do these things and get other clubs started
Mm-hmm.
because the outreach people, their passion is sharing the universe with
Yeah.
everybody and they don't know they can share it with others. Astronomy is not really a visual science. We see pictures from X-ray telescopes. We can't see X-rays. This is converted. Almost all the data that comes from space is not something that we can see. So we convert it into pictures. But it can also be converted into sound. It can be converted into tactile materials and
Yes.
all kinds of other things. And so that's something that we're giving a boost to. I probably lost track of the original question here somewhere.
It's all good. And I want to highlight that this weekend during the Hangoutathon, uh, we're going to have you back talking more about making a more inclusive world and pipelining people into STEM using astronomy. And universal design is part of this, building things that work for
Yeah,
absolutely everybody. And one of the things that I have that I'm going to showcase tomorrow is a 3D printed moon that you can touch and feel the moon. And if you just look at it by itself, it's just like, okay, that is a gray piece of plastic. Blah. But if you put a light bulb inside of it, or in the case of what I did, a wad of LED light strips inside of it, um, the light inside of it shining through the different thicknesses allows you to see the different colors that you see on the moon when you look at it in the sky. And so here's this thing that's essentially a night light in my studio that shines like the moon with the different variations in color, or is a tactile device, and they both work for the same reason. It's the thickness and the plastic. And so universal design is really a great way to do a variety of different things, and we just don't always think through it.
yeah. Another professional astronomer who is blind, Wanda Diaz-Marced.
Yes.
Uh, I've seen her at meetings doing a project where she was this was in an IAU General Assembly, almost all professional astronomers, and she
Yeah.
was grabbing people and having them look at images, but also adding sound, I think it was. I forget what it was,
Mhm.
something else other than the light
Yeah.
to see whether or not that aids in understanding and interpreting. I mean, that really is the case because the 3D printed models that are made of galaxies and various other things uh, really give you literally a different perspective on these objects, and they're helpful.
Yes.
There's a reason why I have a globe back here and not just a 2D map, a globe of the Earth, the old style, because it just presents something completely differently. So these different perspectives are really helpful in a lot of ways. Uh, and making things accessible is not adding something to it just for somebody else. It's making it better for everybody
Yes.
quite often, just in the example that you use there. And many of these things, and there are things that, here's an example, and I got pictures of this stuff if you ever want to get to those, but um, one of the things that people learned, this is someone in Romania where they're doing astronomy for the blind. This was a spinoff from the main astronomy club in Bucharest. They started doing this for the blind and then just went into that. And there's a tactile planetarium dome, which is nothing but a half sphere
Yeah.
that they can go under then feel the sky. And they said, uh, and the blind people will get under that and they say, "Oh, I didn't know the sky was curved." Now think about that. How can you not know the sky is curved? I mean,
Yeah.
it's obvious, isn't it? But if you haven't seen it, what does the horizon mean? What does that mean to a blind person?
Hmm.
And if you think about it intellectually, well, if the Earth is spherical, then the sky has to be curved going around it. But again, it's experience. And this was something that somebody I know at a major institute does with blind people all
Yeah.
the time, but it never had that experience and said, I didn't know
That's
that.
amazing.
And so this is another reason we're connecting people because they don't talk to each other and learn from each other, even if they're doing it full time. They're in their own silo.
And this is one of the problems that we have right now that organizations like the International Astronomical Union are working to try and fix, which we have so many different silos of amazing content that are trapped and isolated from one another, where someone will develop an amazing set of tools in Portugal to work with blind people. There's an amazing example that we've both seen that Amelia put together, and I can't remember her last name. I'm very sorry, Amelia.
Ortiz Gill,
Yes, yes, Amelia Ortiz Gil. She put
and
together.
she's in Spain at University of Valencia.
She was in Portugal when I first saw her doing this.
Oh yeah, probably at a meeting we both attended there
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
and what she showed was using different textures of material to construct planets, where you're using strings to make the rings of Saturn in different thicknesses. You're using different textures of paper to build up the bands on Jupiter. And this idea that instead of asking kids to color planets, you're asking them to construct planets that can be seen tactilely is just such a lovely little thing. And it wouldn't have occurred to me that there's the ability to just go to Michael's and get textured papers there at a local craft store to do these kinds of things. You don't need anything fancy. And we need to find more ways to set this kind of information free. Where do you go when you're looking for inspiration?
Yeah. Well, first, as far coming back very briefly to this community hub we're building to connect people together, there are lots and lots of do-it-yourself projects like that we're going to be sharing in the community hub. Anybody that's interested in that, I know people that have used pasta and stuck them on plates and things like that.
Yes.
Distance between planets, you put something on a rope and make them different lengths, and
Yeah.
then people can walk along it and feel the distances and so on. Um, where do I go for inspiration? Well, okay, so I'm sure this sounds disingenuous often, but I hear from students, for example, in Pakistan, I just had lines of people wanting, students wanting to take pictures with me.
Yeah.
And this was awesome. And they thank me for coming or for answering the questions. I
Yeah.
thank them because as often as they say, well, I've been following you for so many years and you've been my inspiration and why I went into astronomy. That is my inspiration. They, when I say it doesn't, it sounds hokey, but when I say you are my inspiration, because I sit at a computer and I do these things to help people around the world. So I don't very often get to go to these places and meet the people, but when I do, having them say thank you,
Yeah.
that that is it. I mean, it gives me shivers to think about it. And this was an experience at this meeting in Pakistan where I had an awful lot of that laid on me. And I am, as you know, I just kind of I don't like to make it about me, and I hate talking about myself. And
Yeah.
I just want to get things done. That's all I want to do. I don't want to be a brand and all these other things that younger people tell me I have to do. But
Yeah.
but I do it because it's useful. But when I mean, that's the payoff. When all these amateur astronomers around the world are doing outreach, when they show somebody Saturn who says, "Is that real or is that a picture?" Because it's so mind blowing to experience that yourself. That's the pay.
There
They're
there's
volunteer.
there's a photo you have on Astronomy for Equity of a kid with a telescope who's clearly just pulled his eye away from the eyepiece and is looking at the sky. And there's this moment that I have the same photo with a completely different child, and we've both probably seen it dozens of times. When a kid or an adult looks through the eyepiece for the first time and sees it's almost always Saturn. And they're like no words. There's just this literal jaw-dropping moment, and then they look at the thing in the sky that they've just seen through the eyepiece, and you see the wheels turning and something just changed inside of them. And it's that moment because it's easy to get cynical about the funding situation, the politics, and everything else that has the unfortunate habit of sneaking into astronomy. But then you see that moment when someone's life just changed. And you see that in so many places, and it's amazing.
And that is why you have lawyers and janitors and IT people and students and everybody else doing this.
Mhm.
That's the inspiration.
Yeah.
Why do you go out there? They absolutely love it. And I used to do exactly the same thing. And I don't get enough of that anymore because I'm too busy doing programs for other people. I don't get out and do outreach, but that is my natural habitat. Is standing in front of a bunch of people and showing them things through the telescope. That's what I love. And that picture that you're talking about is from Kenya. It's Susan Murabana and Chu Owen, who have the traveling telescope. This is one of the best pictures I've ever seen. And that moment, it's just like you described it. You see over and over again. People look and then they look up and they say, "Can you see that?" And you say, "That's it right there." And like you say, this is how many times have you found something in your neighborhood and said, "I've lived here 20 years and I didn't know this was here"?
Yeah.
Well, this is a, they just recognize something in our neighborhood,
Yeah.
but it's a big neighborhood.
Yeah.
So every time you learn something new, your horizon expands. And when you discover the universe, it's a big expansion. This is okay. I love analogies. So you've lived in your house all this time and for many years, and you have your backyard and your front yard and everything, and you don't see anything else. And one day you get up on the roof and you look out and you see houses and buildings and mountains and trees and everything going off in the distance. This is what you just described. That's how big a leap. this is.
Yeah.
It really is life changing, and it has changed a lot of lives. When I talk to younger people who say, "It, I'm passionate about doing this, and if I just change the life of one person, that's good enough." I said, "Yeah, you're doing a lot more than that, because I'm old. I've seen it. It happens all the time,
Yeah.
and that's it. Yeah."
And we're lucky enough that someone once changed us, and now we get to keep paying it forward. And that's a large part of what we do is we're paying forward the gift we were given of understanding the universe.
Yeah, and that inspiration that I get from those students in Islamabad and others I hear from, not very often, but often enough,
Yeah.
is it tells me that, paying it forward sounds like it's a good thing, but for some of us, it's an obligation.
Hmm.
We had this opportunity, and everybody should have that. John Dobson, who popularized sidewalk astronomy and turned it from, because before John, we used to go out to dark sky sites with our telescopes and invite the public to drive 2 hours out there and join us, which nobody did.
Yeah.
He took telescopes to the streets of San Francisco and said, "Hey, come look at the moon."
Yeah.
And people would. And he said, he looked through a telescope the first time. He said, "Well, everybody's got to see this." And he He said, "Well, if we had a million telescopes distributed evenly enough for the people to use, and everybody could look through a telescope." Um, and he didn't accomplish that, but he accomplished an awful lot,
Yeah.
because they're just armies of people. The International Year of Astronomy, one of the things I did was the Global Star Party, and we
Yeah.
had more than a half million. I think perhaps a million people looked through telescopes in one night. And in most of the world's countries, everybody took part.
You have
So,
to think big when you're trying to think about the universe.
and the universe and our planet, we have 8 billion people. And this is why I went from local things to global things, because I figured, well, work a little bit harder and reach 100 times as many people. It just improves your ROI. So that's kind of all I do now. But yeah, I've turned around the old slogan that used to be pre-internet: think global, act local, which is still great. I
Yeah.
have no problems with it. But my slogan is kind of like, think local, act global, which is, look, we're doing this here. Let's do it everywhere. We can now. And
And
so people come to me sometimes with an idea for a project and say, "I want to expand this." I say, "Well, let's make it worldwide." And then they freak out. Every once in a while, somebody's crazy enough to say, "Oh, that's great."
and this is where with CosmoQuest the way we put it is it takes a village to raise a child and it takes a global community to raise our understanding of the universe. And that's what we're working to build is that global understanding.
Well, CosmoQuest is in the same business.
Yeah.
We've got a little different audience, but there's a huge overlap. And you're in the business of inspiring people with the universe as well,
Yeah.
through citizen science, through podcasts. We have a new podcast as well too. I haven't had you on it yet, Pamela. It's been offline for a little while. We're getting back on in January, with where I'm just interviewing people that I work with around the world, in Pakistan and Ethiopia, and who else have I had on there? Algeria, and I can't remember, South Africa. Just people doing things locally as a part of the global community, just to show people what's happening.
Yeah.
And you 365 Days of Astronomy carries that podcast.
Yep.
And so Aviva, you can tell her we'll be back online here before long, and
Good.
we'll be doing it. But you're in the same business, and you also have a global reach, or should have a global reach, can have a global reach.
We do.
Um, yeah, and so I've been following closely enough, Pamela. We haven't talked in a while.
Yeah. This
Um,
pandemic.
yes, yes. And I always say, well, yeah, astronomy can change the world, but it's not going to because we can't spread it around widely enough to change everything.
Yeah.
It's like the overview effect. Astronauts, Edgar Mitchell says he wants to take every politician, grab him by the collar, and drag him out into space and point him at Earth and say, "Look at that, you
Yeah.
SOB." And it makes a difference. We just can't do enough by ourselves.
Yeah. So we're running out of time, and I appreciate you so much dealing with the fact that we did start late today. That is on me. Uh, so for those of you who weren't here at the very beginning, this weekend is CosmoQuest's Hangoutathon. We are going to be streaming 26 plus hours of content. Ali Pelfrey, my right-hand human, is here with me. She is at my normal studio desk, plugged in with her Mac Mini. My Mac Mini and I are off to the side because my laptop, which I had temporarily working again, said no more, no more. And so I'm now on my Mac Mini on one very sad monitor. But we got it working. Everything is fine, and it's going to be an amazing weekend. And all of you are invited to join us. We will be doing previews tonight and going live at 11 a.m. Boston time. That is 4 p.m. London, 8 a.m. Vancouver. All the time zones can be calculated from that. So I hope to
Mhm.
see many of you then. So where can people find more of what you're doing, Mike?
Well, first of all, I want to say I'll be there this weekend,
Yes.
and I'll be watching, and apparently I'll be talking a little bit too, which hopefully it's a format where there are lots of questions because that's my favorite.
Yeah.
And So Astro for Equity. I keep wanting to put something in the chat here, but only you will see it if I do that.
Yeah, but I
But
can put it
Astro
in the
for
chat.
Equity, yeah, of course, astroforequity.org. We're working on a new website, which I have a great big giant banner saying that because there's so much more to update. And the new website is going to be great, but this one hasn't been updated in a while. All the things I talked about are ongoing. We are going to sort of have a huge relaunch with the website and everything soon. First quarter next year is going to be big. And so, Astronomy for Equity, if you Googled it, I think that would be the first thing to come up because who else would use that term?
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. I have dropped the link into the Twitch chat, and we will get it in the show notes over on YouTube. We aren't going to raid anyone today because I frankly do not have enough screen to do that. So I'm hoping that folks will come back tonight. And for now, um, we're going to bid you all adieu and see you somewhere, somewhen.